Hey everybody, this is Alex Krupski back again for episode 6 of the Millennials in Print podcast with my co-host Jake Hoffman, as always. Today we have another very special guest on the show in Austin Meissner. He is the VP of Operations at Color Inc., which is in Sussex, Wisconsin, another commercial printer nearby us, and he's also a chairman of the Printers Under 40 group along with Jake and our previous guest, Conrad Wolfer. Check it out in episode 5, by the way. Go back to the last one. So anyways, Austin, thank you for joining the show today. I think for our audience, it'd be good to hear a little bit more about your background, kind of just hear really what led you to this point with Color Inc.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, guys. When I got the opportunity, the invite to come on, I've been a loyal listener, listened to a couple episodes. It's
Day
light,
one,
it's
right?
entertaining. Yeah, it's just good to connect with our peers in the industry. To give you guys a little bit of a background, Color Inc.'s a third-generation printer. My grandfather started the company as a print shop in 1984. Before that, we were a graphic design firm. So he was buying a ton of print on the graphic design side and decided to get a press, and it kind of grew from the ground up from there. Started on family farmland, which is at our current location in Sussex, so we're right down the street here from Arundel. Easy jaunt over this way to join the pod. Started out as a commercial shop. We've evolved over the years. The big markets that we've been in the last 20 years, retail signage, POP displays, retailers nationwide, being centrally located in the Midwest is a big help in that regard. Good shipping points to both coasts. And then lately, the last 5 years, we've really moved aggressively into the packaging space. So a lot of folding cartons, a lot of corrugate work. We got a full finishing department, full service bindery, lots of digital equipment, and then a cut sheet offset press.
Wow.
So yeah, we've changed. We've grown a lot over the years. My background, I've been at Color Inc. full time for the past 5.5 years now. After college, did my own thing for about 4 years. Wanted to kind of gain some of my own experience on the outside, which I was a completely different industry, but it kind of prepared me to what I was jumping into. I don't think I completely knew what I was jumping into.
Who does? Yeah, who does?
Yeah, but even in the 5 years since I've been with Color Inc., seen a lot of our own changes internally, but also changes within the industry, and having the opportunity to connect with some other young people in the print industry is really exciting. You might not think there's a lot of us out there, but there's a lot more than you realize.
Yeah, so one thing, I've actually had the pleasure of touring Color Inc., which was awesome, and it's kind of cool because it's kind of like the Charlie's Willy Wonka factory. Like you guys do like a little bit of everything, and I guess one of the questions that I had was, is that a function of you looking at the industry and saying, okay, here's where we think the next change is going to come from or happen? Or is that based on like demand and questions that you're getting asked from your customers to do?
So I would say it's a little bit of both. To our team's credit, we've always really been of the mindset, let's embrace technology. Let's adopt new things. Let's see what we can offer our customers that they might not even realize that they need. And that's served us well over the years. I mean, it's not without its pain points. It's a fine line between living on the leading edge and the bleeding edge. Yeah. We've probably learned that lesson from time to time over the years, a bit of the hard way. But I think from where we're at now, it's served us well. Yeah. Our people embrace new technology, new equipment. But then there's the other side with some of our retail customers, for example. We got into the digital wide format flatbed printing and cutting side probably 12 years ago was really when we jumped into that, which was a little earlier than some other shops. And that's a totally different business model, especially coming from the commercial side. The floor space it requires, the size of the equipment, what kind of substrates you can run on, how to price it, how to sell it. But we actually kind of got nudged in that direction from one of the big box retailers that we worked with. Gotcha. They basically said, we want to consolidate our print spend with a shop that can offer all these different services, and that was one of them. Okay. So in that sense, that really catapulted us into that market, and it's been a great area for us. I mean, that's where we're the busiest on a consistent basis. Really? Wow. So it's been cool, and it's a totally, like I said, totally different business model.
Yeah,
Now,
we
what
got-
is now what does it take to make the transition from one business model like it was before, doing some of the more retail work and things like that, into a completely new space with packaging?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is employee buy-in, and fortunately, we've had that over the years. There's a lot of production considerations that go into it: how you design, how you pack, how you ship, and then the pricing aspect. I mean, for wide format UV flatbed printing, I mean, the ink cost is such a higher portion of the job than what you're used to on a conventional offset press. So you have to take that into consideration when selling work and pricing it for
There's no
customers.
postage either.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're just
No,
like,
but then
okay.
shipping considerations. I mean, we'll make 40 by 20 foot trade show booths that we'll send out across the country. We'll do it cost effectively, and then you have to come up with all the shipping considerations behind it. For retail drop shipments across the country, retailers don't want to pay for oversized packages. You got to work with the UPS and FedEx shipping dimensions in mind, not exceed certain weights. And a lot of the work on our estimating side comes from our people who are able to figure that out for a very complex campaign to drop ship to hundreds of locations across the country. So really, it's the employee buy-in.
Yeah.
A lot goes into the research side when you're looking at technology and equipment, knowing who to talk to vendors. And then also, honestly, a good resource for us has been talking to other printers who've had experience with technology, getting their feedback.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that as an industry, we're stronger working together.
No doubt.
So I have no qualms about talking to a guy up the street, another printer.
Yeah.
Usually they're receptive to giving me feedback that's open and honest.
That's one of the things that I think you identified early on in your career, was just how kind of collaborative the ecosystem of printers and manufacturers is.
I think it seems like it has to be almost too, I mean, I think that there's capacity restrictions that can come into play sometimes where you need to reach out to a competitor and be like, hey, can you guys throw us a bone here and let's figure out what we can do to work together on a project like this. I mean, it's really different from what I've been exposed to, which is a much more feels like cutthroat world.
Oh yeah, and talking to my grandfather who started Color Ink, he couldn't imagine talking to his competitors locally. I mean, we'll partner with some of our other counterparts that are here in southeastern Wisconsin or across the state. We'll collaborate on projects. We'll send them work from time to time. They'll send us work. The reality is we all can't be good at everything. I mean, we all have our niche markets, our own capabilities. So it's great to partner with other printers.
Now, going back to kind of, the packaging world itself, somebody, again, that's relatively new to the industry, trying to learn how to speak the language a little bit better. And for some of our audience at home, maybe that aren't as well versed in print, could you kind of explain really this golden era that packaging is experiencing right now, like really this bigger come up?
Yeah, so part of that was from our standpoint was we saw about 5-6 years ago the retail market start to not dwindle down, but every year just kind of marketing budgets were shrinking. Retailers were getting more selective on where they wanted to spend their dollars. So one market that we identified that we really wanted to jump headfirst into aggressively was the folding carton packaging market. So a lot of SBS board stock, CCNB, print, die cut, folding glue, full finishing, ship out to the customer. So anything from serving the food industry for indirect contact food packaging that you see in grocery stores to consumer product packaging that you see in retailers across the country. We've done work in all those markets, and we actually just secured what's called our SQF certification for the manufacture of food packaging.
Okay.
It's a food safety principled program. That's recognized by the FDA, basically adopting good manufacturing processes internally. You have annual audits, you have internal audits, a food safety committee, and our goal with adopting that certification, which we secured in the last couple months, was really to move aggressively more into the folding carton market for food products specifically.
Kind of like FSC.
Yeah,
Right.
Similar certification. Yep.
Cool. One of the things that we've kind of mentioned, we've touched on a number of times in the podcast, is kind of like how you found the industry, and so you kind of went a different direction, and then you got into print. Were you, because you kind of grew up Were you kind of familiar with print growing up, just from like your grandfather and your dad, or was it really kind of like, oh wow, you don't really know what you don't know
Like, until you
you're
get
in
in-
it? Or?
Yeah, you know, it's kind of a mix of both. I probably thought I knew more about it than I did until I dove in head first in my full-time gig. Obviously, growing up, spending a lot of time at the plant, you kind of have that background. You know, we like to say print's in our DNA. It's been in the family for a long time. But there was a lot of technical stuff I didn't know, and I probably should have known it. I just guess when you're young and you grow up with it, you just take for granted how things are done. So I think it was really important for my first couple of years diving into the industry is really understand the ins and outs of production, how things are produced, how things flow through the shop, and then it's just building off of that. So yes, I've been exposed to it my whole life, but I've learned a ton these past 5 years.
I'm sure, you know, we kind of have been looking at the past year as, you know, bad thing for everybody, but what was the kind of silver lining out of it? Was there something for you? I mean, VP of Operations, you dealt with one hell of a year, as that was your first year with that title, right?
Yep,
so
yep.
you dealt with a crazy year. What was that like?
Yeah, I think for us, our SQF certification process, getting to that point, it actually, with COVID happening, the pandemic, we saw a big downturn of work. That really helped our people focus on what we needed to do to gain that certification.
Okay.
You know, improving things around the shop, cleaning up, organizing. But then the business opportunities, I mean, we've seen our folding carton business probably go from 15 to 20% of our overall top line revenue probably 3 or 4 years ago to now where it's at probably pushing close to 40%.
Wow.
And as you guys can imagine, I mean, packaging is really not slowed down through this pandemic. The in-store experience of shopping at retailers that we're so accustomed to doing is honestly being replaced by the unboxing experience. And that's why you see all these companies investing money into their packaging, not just a generic cardboard box or folding carton, but something with embellishment, foil, raised UV. They want to make the consumer experience of opening a folding carton a unique one.
The one that I always go back to was like Apple.
Yeah.
Like even in the old days of Apple, they
Completely.
had this, like, killer, like that soft touch font. Like, it was like a real experience.
Yeah.
Like,
I probably have 4 generations of iPhone boxes sitting in a closet somewhere that I just don't want to part ways with for whatever reason. So that's a great example.
Think we get them to sponsor us maybe on the podcast, Apple.
Totally.
Millennials in Print presented by Apple.
We'll talk to Tim Cook. Send him a LinkedIn message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is funny you mentioned that though too. I bought a like a gaming headset last year. You know, we were all sitting at home. Like, what else are you gonna do? I bought a nice gaming headset, and I opened the box, and it was ridiculous how many components there were to the box. I'm like, all right, so half of the money I spent was on the packaging itself, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and that's an interesting point too, because these really high-end products that have a high dollar value, I mean, as a portion of that, obviously they can afford to spend more on packaging, right?
Yeah.
right.
So if it's a premium product, they're going to need premium packaging to go behind it, and you know that's been an area of focus for us in the investment decisions we made on the equipment side to really be able to offer those embellishments and kind of those higher end features for our customers.
So how are you kind of managing, you know, both components to the business? Because it really does, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, it does really feel like you got your 2 avenues going on.
For sure.
How are you are you meshing clients together? Do you have completely separate customer bases? Like, what is all involved with that?
So we have lots of customers that do both. They do work on the wide format side. They do stuff on the cut sheet litho side, and then they'll do cut sheet digital as well.
Okay.
They'll use us for all those different avenues. A lot of them like that we're kind of a one-stop shop, and then we have the finishing capabilities, the die cutting, the folding gluing, the print enhancements. We have laser cutting with our Hycon Euclid, which is a really cool device that we popped in about 2 years ago. Really great for shorter run packaging applications. So yeah, we have customers that do both. We do operate in 2 separate buildings. Really, the north building, they're on the same plot of land, but the north building's really where our wide format and fulfillment areas, and then everything else is more of a cut sheet commercial print operation in the main original building, the south building.
And are you structured in the sense of like you have like from an account team and like a sales team? Is it like here's your universal team, or do you have separate, like, okay, here's your packaging kind of rep, and then here's your.
So we do have a couple reps that are kind of specific to whatever they sell. So we do have a dedicated packaging rep. We have a couple longer tenured sales reps that kind of do everything. They've grown with us. They're really familiar with our capabilities. We have a rep that's really focused on the wide format side because that's his background, kind of his niche. And we're honestly, as far as getting new reps, we're open to anyone. Obviously, we went out and made the decision to hire a dedicated packaging rep about a year and a half ago, just catapulting more into that market. We really wanted somebody with some good industry experience. So that's been good. But then we have a really good inside sales staff. I mean, we've been fortunate enough to transition some house accounts over to really making the inside project manager, CSR, whatever you want to call them, really the face of the organization. And not just with Wisconsin-based companies, with nationwide big box retailers. And that's worked out really well. And a lot of those project managers have been with us for a long time. They've grown with the accounts as we've had those accounts.
Yeah. Cool. We have a very similar thing at Randall. I mean, there's people that have worked in the same account for like 25 years.
Yeah.
So,
it's a good structure. I mean, they kind of grow with it. They learn it from the ground up. They're ultimately, in a lot of cases, they're the ones that their contacts at the customer are dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
There's less and less, especially with this pandemic. I mean, we have tons of clients in New York that we'd go visit 3 or 4 times a year. That's been non-existent. I haven't been on a New York trip in over a year and a half now. And I think, honestly, a lot of that might not return. People are fine talking on Zoom.
Yeah, it's been kind of interesting for us too, because we have national clients as well, and if you think about kind of the distribution of retail, probably those areas that were hit hardest by COVID is where the majority of our customers exist. So yeah, it'll be interesting. We used to have a pretty regular stream of people coming in for just press okays, and we've seen that those numbers go down quite a bit. And what's been nice is we have a kind of a dedicated quality QC team in place, and so those quality standards were maintained even if they weren't necessarily able out here. So I don't know if you have something like that in place, or.
Yeah, actually as part of SQF, there's a ton of quality components that go into us, and that's really served us well. Improving the electronic proofing process. We do have a number of customers doing electronic proofs, mostly PDFs. We have a web approval system that's really cool for the customers to go in and mark things up electronically. Just kind of a more robust version of a PDF. Yeah. When you guys do proofs, are you guys outputting hard proofs and sending them out in a lot of cases, or electronic? Combination of both?
Combination of both. It really depends on the client. For me, so one of the things that I deal a lot with first time print clients. So inherently, I make sure that we print out what they're going to look at. But yeah, for some of the more like seasoned accounts or accounts that aren't necessarily as color critical, they're fine doing online soft proofing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just kind of depends on the account.
Have you guys seen a move of people coming back for on-site press okays at all yet, or is it kind of?
Yeah, we've seen a couple, but there's been, it's really kind of like by choice and depending on.
Sure.
What's what.
And the customers that you guys have worked with for a long time probably have a comfort level with your QC team to be able to defer to, your internal experts that know their account, that know what to look for.
Yeah, for sure that, and then also I think combined with, some of our clients have worked with the same press guy for 35 years.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
That's huge.
It's kind of like, we know exactly what this guy is, so they're behind the scenes, they're kind of control. They know exactly what expectations are, what preferences on the sheet are, things like that. So they're just really aligned with, customers that way. So, Austin, obviously one of the things that you were kind of alluding to, and it's sort of a common theme in a lot of the podcasts that we've recorded so far is, how do we get young people in the industry? Obviously, you and me are in a kind of a unique position where we've had family ties that kind of brought us in, or we heard about the industry that way. How have you seen maybe success at Color Inc. getting young people in, and are there any ideas that you think would be, beneficial for people to try?
Yeah, I think a large part of it is the way our industry has been marketed, or not necessarily the way it's been marketed, but maybe more of the way it's been perceived by people. People think print is dead. Print's not dead. That's pretty evident for us, but that might not be evident for everyone. Everyone says, I talk to people that say, "Oh, you work for a printing company. Like, do those still exist?" I'm like, well, there's a lot of things that you probably don't even realize that come from printing companies
Right.
that you use every day. But it's that messaging. It's the way our market tries to attract young people. At the end of the day, we're competing a lot against other trades. People who become plumbers, electricians, why not become a press operator? Why not become a bindery operator, run a saddle stitcher, run a die cutter? The fact of the matter is our industry is aging. As if you look at the data, I mean, there's a lot of people that are in their 50s and 60s that are going to be retiring, and there's going to be a lot of opportunity for younger people to replace those good-paying jobs that they can do for their whole career.
Right.
It's just capturing those people. One thing that we've done at Color Inc. that's been pretty cool is we've had local high schools, Sussex, Hamilton, Menominee Falls, Pewaukee, some of the Arrowhead school district kids come out for tours just to kind of see what a printing plant looks like. They've
Visit
never
the
been
chocolate
in one.
factory.
Yeah,
like Jake talked about.
They see cool things. They see, interactive displays with light, motion, sound. They see the oversized POP displays that are pretty cool. They see the design, the structure that goes into it. It's really not just about putting ink on paper and that's it. I mean, we're not making booklets, pamphlets, brochures, flyers. There's a lot of cool stuff within the industry, and there's a lot of creativity behind that. So it's that messaging, how we go about, contacting people and making people aware that the print out industry needs young people. That's really what we have to figure out collectively. And between this podcast and the Printers Under 40 organization that we're all part of, I think if we can find ways to reach people in community colleges, in high school, 4-year colleges, if we can capture those people and try to bring them into the industry for good opportunities that, they can make a career out of it, I think we got to do whatever we can to get there.
I think it is about, catching them young, so to speak, right? I mean, even doing elementary school, middle school tours just to learn about it. Like you're telling me that there's teachers out there that couldn't find something in their lesson plan to come and do an opportunity like that and come do a school tour. There's tons of stuff like that, especially later on too. Obviously, in high schools, you're going to want to get them for sure. But I just think, I grew up in Hartford. Quad's right down the road. I knew who Quad was. I didn't really ever get a chance to tour there or anything. I think it's a missed opportunity that's not, not to pick on Quad, but I think it's evident in the whole industry. So the fact that you're doing stuff like that, I think you're one of the early ones, it feels like, in this era, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of things. I think one, getting people, especially younger people, to kind of have that eye-opening moment where, like, wow, this isn't just what we thought print was, where it's a copier and you're printing, where all the things that you listed, that's going to capture people's imagination right out of the gate.
Yep.
One of the other things that I think a lot about too is maybe we have to start thinking about getting non-print background people into our industry, right? Because to me, I think print, you're evidence of it, I'm evidence of it, you're evidence of it. It's something that you can learn. Right?
Yeah.
It takes time, but you can absolutely learn it. And I think one of the things that I always look at is to say, okay, if we can keep adding young people into the industry, to me then inherently that's going to bring more young people into the industry because they're going to talk to other young people and stuff like that. So I think it's just really important that we continue to build on the momentum.
Yeah, and I think development of people too. I mean, somebody can come in as a press feeder, with relatively little experience and work their way up to a seasoned operator, and then maybe that person is really personable and there's an avenue for them to get into customer service or sales.
Right.
If there's a path to empower people within, cross-train them in multiple departments, give them opportunity to foster growth where they can grow with an organization. That's a great starting point for people.
Yeah, and to me what I think is cool is it seems there's no like one career trajectory.
Yep.
path.
Definitely
It seems
not.
like every time
Yeah.
you talk to someone, whether they're at an executive level, where they're press one up, it's like, oh yeah, I was a janitor, and then I became a secretary, and then I was in. It's just everyone, but I think it speaks to the opportunity that if you're hardworking and willing to work, we're willing to put you in whatever position to succeed.
Yeah.
Right.
And then another thing when it comes to recruitment, I mean, technology and the way equipment's improving, it's becoming easier to operate. It's becoming cleaner. I mean, print shops are probably a lot different than what they were. All the spray powder, the grime, the grease in shops and 30 years ago. I mean, I've been to Randall. I've seen a lot of other shops in the area. By and large, we do a pretty good job of keeping a neat, tidy, clean workspace.
People have all their fingers and toes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, and
Right.
the safety side, I mean, equipment and all the guarding that's came along, it's just a safer, cleaner, better environment to work in maybe than it was 50 years ago. But I think that comes back to the perception that people think it's really dangerous, and that might have been the case, a long time ago. But now with all the technology advancements that we've seen in the industry in regards to equipment, it's really a great industry to be in.
I think understanding size and scale of the industry, we talked about it with Conrad a little bit too, is inside each of the buildings, it's a huge warehouse filled with incredibly complicated and interesting equipment. I think that I'm not some manufacturing buff or anything like that, but I came in and was in awe of all the components that go into it. Just coming in here, I think that that's another avenue to take advantage of too, just understanding these machines are the size of football fields.
I'll tell you
You
what,
know?
if you dropped me anywhere in the back of a Randall and told me I had to get up to the front offices, I'd say probably an hour before I found my way. It's a maze. It's pretty impressive facility.
the people are really helpful.
Yeah, I guess you
helpful.
could just ask. I want one of those bikes that you guys
You might
got.
get lucky and get picked up on a bike.
Yeah.
I've had that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think my first couple weeks I was just going back there taking pictures. I'm like, look, social media opportunities,
Yeah.
And yeah, I couldn't find my way back. And I've had multiple times where they're like, "Are you lost? Can we help you get back to your parents?"
They knew you were an
Like, yes,
office guy.
please.
They're like, just keep walking that way. Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, we've kind of covered most of the topics that we wanted to. We always kind of like to open the floor up if there's any, things that you want to say, any, closing thoughts, closing remarks.
Well, first of all, again, thank you guys for having me. This is really cool.
Thank-
I think
thank you for joining, man.
a forum like this. I mean, we're all very aware of podcasts. I'm not sure that there's a podcast serving young people in the print industry that existed prior to this one. So if anything, this gives us a great voice.
Not that we found. I mean, there are a lot of great podcasts. Like, don't get me wrong, that are out there for the print industry. There's a few, but it's something I think more and more are going to take advantage of for sure.
And as this thing grows, I mean, maybe you can have guests from representation of across the country. Maybe not even people that are on site. I think working with the trade organizations like for us, like the GLGA, organizations like that, that really highlight the industry. If we can partner with them, get the good word out there that this is a great industry with a lot of opportunity for young people to be in.
Yeah.
I think it's going to serve us all well.
Awesome, man.
Awesome. Thanks.
Cool, guys.
Yeah, thanks again for
Been
joining.
a lot of fun.
It's been awesome. We look forward to the tour. Printers Under 40 group. If anybody is, in kind of that millennial space, they're looking for more people to connect. Feel free to. Well, actually, I'll let you. Shameless plug, guys. How do we join the Printers Under 40 group?
Yeah, so you can follow us on LinkedIn, Printers Under 40, really easy. That's probably the easiest way to get in touch with us. The GLGA has an email contact list with a lot of printers based in Wisconsin. So if you're not on the list, reach out to Joe Lyman. You can reach out to myself or Jake or Conrad. We can help facilitate that, give you guys updates as to when we're meeting, doing events, plant tours, things like that.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, thanks again. Appreciate you joining, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Thanks.
See ya.